Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the hotly contested action here at the NSC 2018. We are now going to be watching for the second time 2017 national champion Austin Shin taking on the man from IKEA. No, I don't mean he's made out of plastic and likely to collapse if you move him. I mean, he's the man who, having grown up here in the UK and being UK Scrabble stalwart, moved across to Sweden. Ed Martin. Ed is gesturing here, waving at us, making sure that I agreed not to mention IKEA or make any jokes about him being made of plastic. No, Ed, we're fine. Austin taking a drink. He doesn't need one, but he just wants to flex his muscles. It's all about psychology at this stage. At this point, dear listeners, I'd like to take the opportunity, as they do on other such great shows as Desert Island Discs and Crime Watch, to put a shout out to some of our viewers, particularly Colin Northmore, vaunted by many as the man most likely to lose to me in the World Championship final this year. And I think we all agree, we wish him well in that endeavour, and I certainly will be supporting him in it. So here we go, straight into the game. Just waiting to get the racks through so that I can continue my usual high quality banter. Austin Shin to start, which by inference suggests that Ed Martin might be going second. So Austin with a rack that shouts "change me," not literally, because that would be cheating. Exchanges very quickly, keeping SST. Not sure whether I keep both S's here, as I was saying earlier on, in terms of synergy. Two of anything, even two blanks, is poor synergy. But I guess in this situation, you don't really want your opponent to get the S. Danger here that if Ed does play any short play, he's going to give Austin stiffies. So he's opted to change as well. As they used to say, he's followed Austin into the bag. That's probably the best thing to do here. Going to be interesting to see how these opening moves play out. I mean, Austin is sitting there with obviously very, very close to a lot of potential bonuses, needs a floater. Ed, similarly, needs a floater. The floater in this case for Ed is a rack only combines with an N, surprisingly, to make Trendoid. Austin stiffens, stiffest, and stiffies. Stiff, the natural play, potential to pick out all of the extensions for it as well because it's kept ES. Other potential extensions would be stiffing and stiffish. Ed, in a situation here where he's going to have to play off a couple of tiles, keep the score tipping over. Or just score heavily by playing drifted. He's probably checking at the moment to make sure that he's not missing anything, but he isn't. Surprising though, if you don't know that it only combines with Trendoid. If Drifted weren't available, I'd quite like Doit, DI of and if, keeping red. But Drifted for 48 has to be the play. To which you would imagine Austin would play almost immediately Smarted and Stiffs. Yeah. Straightforward 48-point play. If you don't have a bonus, it's got to be played. Austin, we would now assume, will play Smarted pretty smartish. Yep. And Ed with a lovely clunky rack. Just as an aside, if Austin hadn't played Smarted, he had a nice overlap play of Misrated through the eye of Stiffs, but Smarted was the best play anyway. Ed only has one place to play off the queue, which will still leave him with a clunky set of duplicates and duplicates that don't work together. If he was so inclined, he's got an adventurous play of Leon down the side of Smarted for 30 points, which is probably, I would say, the best score that he's going to get on this board. It will keep QN, which obviously isn't particularly exciting. It will open up the triple file, which obviously isn't particularly exciting. I think what we're saying is there's nothing particularly exciting that Ed can do. Quick static simulation puts QI and Leon at the top of the table. Austin now has a cheap 50-point X play. He might want to just think about whether he's got anything else worth doing, but no. Down it goes. Now, if only Ed could pick out Ennoble now, that would probably be the best play. Oh, he's done it. So, ennobling his rack, he should now be playing down the side of Ox. And I would expect it to be pretty much an insta-play, as the saying goes. So ennoble making mole and axe. This might be the kind of situation you don't want to find yourself in, though, if you can't remember if MOL is a word. Oh, he hasn't got a B. Ah, dear listener, he hasn't at all. So that's a slightly different situation. I'm sure he'd remember that MOL is a word. In which case he's got Ronel plus an E. I imagine he would have immediately seen Loner, keeping EN. Or indeed just Lone, keeping REN. Or Noel, or NOLE. Interestingly, in one of my fan letters recently, Mrs. Ping from Cleethorpes asked me what I kept on the underside of my spare toilet lid, and Sure enough, at Christmas, I went around the house putting a number of different decals all over the windows and indeed across the toilet, as you do. And I thought it would be humorous to misspell Noel as Nole, because obviously anyone using my spare toilet, I know I may not like. It's the spare toilet after all. But nobody's noticed, which I think is a real tragedy. So I'm left having to come to Scrabble tournaments to mention my comic brilliance to people. But in the meantime, getting back to the serious game, Ed has picked out a good, nice bonus. Relatively high probability. Down it goes. Austin clearing out his rack. Bivia, as you no doubt know, does not take anything, being the plural of bivium, as it is. The other option for Ed there would have been acridine, but wouldn't have scored as much. Austin, interesting word this actually, because who would have thought that Una Stubbs indeed used to be on Give Us a Clue would have made it into our dictionary, but there you go. So Una-like. Now Ed has Uthike through the A of Riences. It's the only 8 with this rack. I would expect Ed to know this, and I would expect him to play it relatively quickly. The danger in situations like this is you look at a rack with 2 O's, 2 E's, you can almost balance it into a nice looking rack in inverted commas. And the fact that Austin has actually created a high scoring place to offload some of these tiles, so HOE down the side of unalike, could, oh, that's okay. I don't need to justify why he's going to miss Uthike, because he's not going to miss Uthike. Good play. Austin, some clunky tiles, but some good scoring opportunity. I mean, ideally, he'd want to get rid of the JUV, but this is not a situation in which he's going to be able to do that. Something such as Joram through the O of Uthike that's just been played would score reasonably well. Ed has picked out a very nice selection, actually. Make some good quality bonuses rather than that retained stuff that people always go on about. Some easier to spot than others, but we'll get to that when it's his move. JURE underneath Uthike is another option for Austin. It does create the J play. Realistically, it probably gives away a 30 or 40 point counterplay. And it keeps VUM, which is pretty grotty, but it's probably going to be the best score. So yeah, a quick note from my friend Quackle, a Twitter, everything it knows. It says that Jur is indeed the top score, followed by Joram. Jur, well, I should stop looking ahead really, but if he plays Jur, it doesn't leave, I think, a playable bonus that I can see at the moment. But it would allow Ed to play Jalopy, keeping A blank. It's played Juve. Interesting. 31. Sacrifices a lot of points, but doesn't really give anything away. Ed's options here, the 7s are Payolas and Payload. The 8s are Parology, Payloads, and Polygala, I believe. But none of those floaters are available. Going back to what I was saying earlier on about being distracted by the opportunities on the right-hand side of the board, he could now play a simple Pay or something similar, PYA, down the side of Unilike. Don't see a great deal of other opportunities at the moment. But this is one of the racks that I absolutely love. It's always going to have high quality bonuses and something like this. Yeah, so sure enough, he's played Pay. I don't think there's anything to argue about there. Austin sitting with Rum Port, which for those of you who know it, should help you immediately to see the 6 that he has in his rack, which is Rum Pot. Of course, this game is already posing the subliminal deep question, Uthike or Trump? Personally, I'd go Uthike every time. Austin playing to start restricting the board by playing Prom. Interesting trap, but I doubt it's a deliberate trap here. Ed, while he has continued to play Scrabble, probably hasn't played the kind of volume of games that he used to. And as some of you may or may not be aware, EPROM used to be a word until the last update. Do you think Austin is setting this up to lure Ed into playing a phony hook? I can't imagine so, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. So as we move on, Ed sitting there with Apogeel is the only 7. Interesting 8s. It's kind of Vulture there and Ars Vigel. Analog, which for those of you who are interested, was always an 8 that I couldn't see when I was studying, but fortunately I can now. Floatage and Gallopade, none of which fit. So Ed's going to be trying to come up with a play that preserves bonus potential and scores. He's 54 behind. And I think sometimes players overly focus on a bonus at any cost. But let's not forget, if you bonus and you're still behind, it sort of defeats the purpose. So Ed should be trying to score as much as possible while keeping ALE, EL, or something similar. It's not a great board for doing that, however. Something that jumps out is perhaps a play of a go underneath Prom. Only scores 16, but keeps ALE blank. Sets up the front hooks, but there aren't a huge number of those left out still. 1, 2, 3. So there's only one D left out, 2 S's. Highest scoring opening play is Homage. Which is like an homage, but when you're a bit surprised by it. Potentially strong because it doesn't create any easy counterplays. And the opening that it creates is significantly more flexible than a go. Spying that blank that's still out, though, Ed might be a little bit concerned about making such a volatile opening. He'll want to keep some control of this board, because his expectation will be that if he plays a bonus, he'll be 30 up, and he wants the board to be pretty closed at that point once he's played his bonus. I've just noticed if we were playing if only, or more importantly, clabbers, I could have actually found a use for my master's degree in theology, philosophy, and ethics, because you would have had apologiae through the PO of euthikae. Very good play. Very, very good play. Top choice, best play. Small round of applause from the Smitheram camp. Austin immediately plays Topaz. Grotty keep, but who cares when you're scoring 72? Ed with a selection of relatively straightforward bonuses. I say a selection, waggled and wangled. So Ed is 102 points behind, so he will still be 30-ish behind once he plays his bonus. They are the only bonuses. That is the only place to play them. Toying with us, he makes the blank the first one, so we have to try and work out what it is. He is a minx, Mr. Martin. As an aside, it's actually better that he's done that. You might think that it's just a matter of random choice whether you put the blank first or second, but he's behind. So if he plays a bonus, going to score as many points with it as he can now, which he won't do through a blank. So he needs to leave the actual G in a position that it will score him 2 points rather than 0 points when he bonuses through it, as he would hope. So it's a good play. So he's 23 adrift. There are 10 tiles in the bag. Austin has picked out some good tiles to offset the pretty awful keep from Topaz, but as I said, he's going to complain when he can score 72. The only real threat to Austin now is a play down from the WE, or a play through the rest of the floaters. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So ideally what he should be trying to do is to play a 6-letter play, perhaps, down from WE, to really completely block off the board. There is no 6-letter play that does the trick that I can see. Something like ungear would still leave the D floating, but would severely frustrate the E and would completely remove the plays through the G and the L, as well as taking out the WE opening. 9, 11, 15, 16, 18, 19, for 22. They're putting 45 points up, keeping the W as a scoring insurance. Simulation is suggesting or at F1, keeping GU NER. Not so sure about that, on the basis that what is left out is extremely bonus conducive. You go 50 up, but realistically Ed could go 20, 30 up with his bonus if he's got one. In a fairly easy position. This kind of situation, my personal style generally is kill the board as much as possible, chase the blanks, which I think ungear certainly achieves. If we look at what's left, it's quite consonant heavy, but 2 S's and a blank still unseen. So coming out after a significant amount of simulation, seems to be a roo. But we're going to add in ungear just for the hell of it to see how wrong Quackle can be when it doesn't put it at the top. But a roo at L12 down the side of Smarted is being suggested among the top. But ungear has very quickly shot to the top in terms of win percentage. We are doing it on a 2-ply sim, but when I said earlier on I taught Quackle everything that it knows, it wasn't always listening, but there you go. So Austin has chosen to play theoretically along the same lines as I was talking about, to block and restrict, and U does that. It leaves a potential slot down the side, but it's not huge. It gives them a 46-point lead. So it achieves all the stuff that I was saying earlier on. I think the benefit of ungear from my point of view is it takes away opportunity from my opponent to get the goodies. Which, to be fair, doesn't really matter if you can pick out IES blank when you've played off a new. So back to Ed. Ed will be like we all were at one point, young, hopeful, expectations for the future. And similarly to all of us, those will be dashed very shortly by a man hitting him with rugbies. Ed needs to... It's an interesting situation here. Ed needs to open without giving too much away, looking at an unseen selection of tiles with 6 in the bag, which is extremely bonus friendly. He will have an inkling, I think, that Austin maybe didn't have the... Well, he should have a strong inkling that Austin didn't have the S in the blank, because if he did have the S in the blank with ANEW, he would have played a bonus. So from that point of view, Ed will think he might have a shot here. I think he almost needs to be playing... Well, he does. I mean, he needs to be playing something that scores and creates openings. So, YOU are making yen an ode. Got the S to go either side of yen. He doesn't have any of the front hooks for node, for ode rather. And the fact is, Austin will simply play down the side of a new, even if he doesn't have a playable bonus. Which, of course, he does have with Gutsier. I think what is likely to happen is that Ed plays YOU, or maybe even Yug onto the G of Waggled. Or a much more violent opening. YOU was the highest scoring player really that they're keeping, yes. Well, the highest scoring reasonable play. Austin over the moon. I think this is one of the things that people who watch from outside the competitive Scrabble world don't quite get or haven't experienced in order to get. There's that moment where you're blocking like mad and you're looking at your tracking and the S's are out with a load of E's, T's, R's, blanks, and you're terrified of what your opponent's going to do. And then in one move, you pick all the goodies out. And all of a sudden your opponent's setting you up to play bonuses. Nothing beats it. So right now Austin, I mean, he's got Gutsier set up on his rack. From his point of view, there are still a few bonuses that might play, given the opening that Ed has just created. So defensively, Austin should play the slightly lower bonus on the left-hand side. Apparently that the blank in Wangled is an N rather than a G. So something like Gurries. Oh, he's played Gutsier down there. All equally good. I notice Austin, sensing the win, has his thank you score sheet on top. Ed, sensing the loss, has cobbled together a gun made out of several pieces of plastic from IKEA and is about to shoot Austin in the ankle. So Ed, now keeping philosophical, will be looking to play out. As the shot moves away from the board, I can't remember how flexible the A of Bivia was, but if it's available, he should play Horrell and get it over with. Oh, sorry, Austin should play Horrell and get it over with when it comes to him. Ed's, it's really just a case of ringing out whatever points you can at this stage. Snob or Snib would block Horrell. I'm just trying to see if there is another outplay that Austin has. Yeah, I think at this point, without having looked at any simulation, I play Snob. As I say, it blocks Horrell, it keeps Tin. Interesting. There was a much higher scoring play of Bestie, B-E-S-T-I-E. Sorry, B-E-S-T-I, making Proms Ob. But then why would you give your opponent the satisfaction of going out? You've had to put up with this game. Let's make him put up with it a little bit longer. And Tin goes out nicely down the side of Omage, or makes Trin across the R of Gutsia. I think a sense of pride is stopping Austin playing HO in the bottom left-hand corner. We always want to do something better than a two-letter play at this stage, but there ain't much else. There we go. And now I think Tin is likely to be the best outplay, Tin or Nit, down the side of Omage. There we go. Overall, pretty solidly played game by both sides. Timely big scores by Austin. I think unalike gave him a bit of momentum. Smarted Ox, unalike in quick succession, really gave him a challenging lead in this game, which as it runs out, he wins quite comfortably. But who knows, maybe if that blank and the S were in the bag that Ed was fishing into, he would have had a better chance. But for now, Austin continues in his winning journey. And at this stage, I believe, is leading the 2018 National Scrabble Championships. So I'm going to go off and see how everyone else is getting on. Yes, indeed. And that puts Austin on 6-0, about plus 800. Ed at that point was the only other unbeaten player, but he's closely chased by a number of other very capable players. So for now, we will sign off. Next game due to start at around 5:30 at Brett Smitheram time. So go off, make a coffee, have a nice bowl of shut chi, and I will be back in a short while.